Hello, welcome back to the Evergreen Rx. I'm your host, Hayden, licensed mental health therapist, Cancer Moon, and the first to get deep at any party. And period. I don't know. I always like come in hot to record with the intro, and then I'm like, ugh, and now what? But you know, we're back at it. I've had a couple guests recently. If you guys haven't catch those episodes, go ahead and listen. I had on Eleanor Lee and Sabrina Romanoff, both amazing, you know, in their respective domains. I particularly really enjoyed talking to Sabrina about dating because she is a psychologist that works with relationship issues all the time and had so many, you know, wise things to say in the realm of relationships, which is just such a big topic for all of us. But same with Eleanor. She had so much to say about making friends and putting yourself out there. And so feeling really happy about those. But I'm also excited to be back, just me and you, answering one of y'all's questions. And if you're new here, awesome. Hello. And you're wanting to ask me a question and have me answer or share my thoughts or just like ponder on it together, then please send me your question at theevergreenrx@gmail.com, or you can text or call me at 512-655-9888 and just spill the beans so that we can learn together. Now I have a question for you guys as we're really here in the dog days of summer, in the thick of it. What's left on y'all's summer bucket list? I will let you in on a little secret, which is that I made my summer bucket list like 2 days ago, and it might seem a little bit late, but I live in Texas and summer lasts sometimes until December, so I feel like I have time. But I also, you know, that's kind of a joke. It's just the heat, because obviously as we move into the fall months, then I start wanting to do fall things even if the weather doesn't match. But you know, I thought it's never too late. And sometimes as it gets hot and like it just kind of, it gets into the dog days, the excitement and the energy that was there at the beginning of summer starts to fade, and I just start pining after fall and the change of the seasons. But I don't want to do that this year. I want to like really soak up and embrace the time that I'm in right now. And it is still very much summer, and August deserves some love, even though it's not, you know, as shiny and shimmery and new as like June, when it's, you know, I want to go to the pool. I want to eat watermelon. I want to like, you know, be outside all the time and watch summer movies and stuff. I might have lost some of that sparkle, but it's never too late. So what's on y'all's summer bucket list? What are the things that you haven't done yet that you want to? One of mine was like baking a treat, baking a summer dessert. And I just made key lime pie the other day, and it was great and also really easy. So that one got checked off, and that was really fun. But anyway, I'm curious to know what you guys are looking forward to with the rest of the season. So with that said, let's just dive into the listener question and open up the shop. Okay, it says, Dear Evergreen, lately I've been feeling this weird sadness that I can't totally explain. Nothing huge has happened, like no major loss or breakup, but it feels like I'm kind of grieving the version of my life I thought I'd have by now. Like, I always imagine I'd be living in a different city or married or killing it in my career by now, and I'm not. I guess I'm still figuring things out. But there's this pain when I think about the life I pictured versus the one I'm living. I don't really know what to do with that feeling or if it counts as grief. Is it normal to feel sad about things that never happened or versions of yourself that never really got to exist? Totally. Yes, it's normal. I'm sure all of you listening are like, I get this. I know that pain of being like, wait, I'm 25 now and I thought I was going to be at this point in my life, and I'm actually at this totally other point in my life. And I don't know how to like reconcile the two, or maybe like, am I happier now? Is it like a good thing that I didn't end up where I thought I would end up? Am I sad about it? Do I want to change course? Like, it's just so many questions all the time. And I'm sure this doesn't just happen in your 20s, but we all know this very well in this really defining decade of life when so much is happening and like a lot of the foundation or groundwork for the rest of our life is getting laid, or at least it seems like that. So yeah, there are so many versions of ourselves that we'll never get to meet because, you know, we only get one life and one path. And that path might take a lot of winding roads and you might have a lot of iterations of who you are, but ultimately you only get to live out one path. And so there are thousands of other paths that we don't get to see, that we don't get to experience, that we don't even really know what they would look like. And so there can be this like ambiguous cloud of like grief of, if I had taken that right turn in my life instead of a left, like who would I be? I don't really know. And maybe I fantasize about that person and think, oh, I would have been so much better off or so much happier, but I ultimately don't get to know. And there's a lot of grief associated with that. And so I actually saw a video the other day from a popular influencer who got divorced and then has like been exploring their sexuality since then. And they were talking about how they can't imagine never like meeting this version of themselves, never getting to have this experience. And it was really interesting seeing like the comments and the follow-up questions from people about this, like really kind of showing how afraid we all are of making a wrong turn or missing out on like the person we're meant to be, quote unquote. And not to say anything about this influencer or them exploring their sexuality or, you know, whatever. That's all great. And it's their path in life. And it's happening exactly how it's meant to happen. And I think that that's wonderful. But it just really got me thinking because of people's reaction in the comments of, you know, like, because, you know, this influencer, they didn't think that they were going to get divorced when they got married. They didn't think that they were missing out on anything by not having like a lot of dating experience. And so people in the comments were like, you know, now that you're looking back, do you think you were just like convincing yourself you weren't missing out? Like, whatever. There was all these questions. And I just think it's interesting because life doesn't miss us. Our life can't miss us. It's not possible. Because it's unfolding as it's unfolding. And so say if this influencer hadn't got divorced and had stayed in the relationship and found this whole other life and experience, maybe she wouldn't have explored her sexuality in the way that she is now, but she could have had a myriad of other experiences. And I don't want to get too into the depths, and I don't want you to really think too hard about who I'm talking about, because I'm more generally saying this. Yes, if the relationship is not right, if you're not happy in your marriage or whatever, get divorced. But I'm just saying on a more abstract level, I think that whether you're spiritual or not, we can kind of rest easy in this idea that life unfolds exactly as it's meant to, from a really practical standpoint. And, you know, how it's practical to me is that what happens is what happens, period. Like, it is what it is in that way. Your life is unfolding, time keeps moving forward, and as it unfolds and takes its twists and turns, it's doing exactly as it's meant to do. Because it's as it's done. You know, I don't know if this is like making total sense, but I think about it a lot. Like, if something happens, it was meant to happen, because unless you believe in time travel, there's no way to undo it. It's what happened, and there's no changing that or going back. And so I really don't think that there's any wrong choice in a way, or like, oh shit, I missed this turning point and now I'm screwed, or like the life I was meant to have is no longer accessible to me. I saw a quote on Pinterest the other day: if it's your calling, it will keep calling. And I think that's kind of in the vein of what I'm talking about here. Like, people are so afraid of missing the things that are meant for them in life. And it's like, it's not a one and done. Like we get chances. If it's your calling, it's going to keep calling. Like, and through the struggle too, maybe what is getting reflected in some of like these fears is, oh, I've wasted so much time not doing this thing. Say I knew when I was younger that I wanted to be a therapist, but I was afraid and I didn't pursue it until I was in my 40s or whatever. And I could have had so much time really living out my purpose. But those 20 years in between wouldn't just be wasted. Because if we're not ready for something, we're not ready for it. And so in that struggle or in that kind of journey to come back to that calling and that purpose, we learn so much and we have so much experience that isn't just like useless or a waste of time. When we're saying no to something, we're also saying yes to something else, and vice versa. There's always this push and pull between what we're doing with our life and what we're not. And so grief is just baked into the experience. So yes, this is my long-winded way of saying it's normal. And also it does count as grief. You know, it's okay to take time and process the versions of yourself that you never got to be. Because also sometimes this happens through life experiences or traumas that, you know, we never asked for or never would wish for, that really change the course of our life. And it is perfectly normal and healthy to want to grieve who we could have been if these things had never happened. You know, and letting go of your dreams is hard, in particular if there's something that you always thought you would do. Like you'd always, growing up, thought you would become a doctor, or like that was what people expected from you, and then your life took a different path and you didn't do it. You know, that can be really hard to deal with, because it's just like we have to adjust the vision we had of ourselves, the future that we had imagined, and what we thought our life would look like and who we thought we would be in that life. And, you know, that's just tough, because we can be saddled with so many expectations growing up to ours, but a lot of times others, and the acute pressure of like achieving whatever it is that our parents wanted for us, or that they feel like they maybe missed out on life. And so it's like their second chance at doing something that they never did or that they were too afraid to go after. And so this can create a lot of like complicated feelings and tension around doing what at one point a version of us or other people in our life dreamed that we would do. And I think it's actually really a good sign that you're feeling grief about this, or you're questioning, you know, is this grief? Because that, being with the losses and processing the heartbreak and the grief of life, really helps us not get stuck in it. Archetypal examples of like the high school like burnout, basically, or like the person that never amounted to anything. They had all this promise, and then, you know, they got stuck. Like I think of like a high school football player who had all of this potential to go off and have this amazing career, and then they got hurt, and then they never really recover. They can never really pivot from the dream of the life that they once had. And in that case, grief and feeling the grief and not getting lost and stuck in all of the feelings of disappointment, like this shouldn't have happened. It's so important. It's so generative to just process and move on. This makes me think of a book that I read called Quarter Life, and I'll have it linked below, but she lays out like these two different types of people and the quarter life crisis that they can face based on, you know, how their life up until 25 has been. And so one is the stability type and one is the meaning type. I also read online that this can be referred to as like the locked in versus locked out type. So when you're locked in, more of that stability, maybe you've like hit the markers of life. Things have gone as expected or anticipated, but you kind of come to one day or wake up and you're like, wait, hold on. Is this actually what I want for myself? Was this my dream, or was this somebody else's? Or now that I'm here, am I actually happy? And the other version, the locked out, is like the more meaning type, the people that don't want to be hemmed in. They don't want to be stuck in the system. They don't want to just be a cog in the machine. They want to seek meaning and purpose, but they can also kind of find themselves spinning their wheels or getting stuck because it's harder to get into the flow and get into the stream of life where success and happiness can be found. For this original question, this listener question, you might be experiencing a little bit more of the locked out type. Like, I thought I'd be hitting these markers by this point, but for whatever reason, I haven't really been able to get there. And so I bring up this concept, one, because I think it's helpful for all of us in our 20s, but also because for you in particular, maybe feeling in more of that locked out camp, don't think that other people that seem locked in and like their life has just hit all the marks it's meant to are necessarily happier or have it all together in a way. They can be struggling with the same kinds of questions and grief that you're struggling with. And the other thing is that the sooner that you can grieve and let go of what should have been, the sooner you can move towards what is or what could be. That you can pivot and not be locked out and not be stuck forever. Because if we break the illusions of what life should look like, we can actually look at what is and go, well, am I okay with what is? Maybe I'm actually not as unhappy with my life as I thought if I can just stop looking and comparing it to where I thought it would be. Or are there more opportunities in front of me that I'm not taking advantage of? Is there time that's passing me by where I could be exploring these new worlds and facets of myself that I didn't anticipate? Can I meet myself in a new way and actually see who I am and who I have become versus gripping and holding on to what I think should have happened and who I should be at this point in my life? And maybe there are more things that I'm grateful for with how my life has turned out now that I'm missing because I'm so focused on all the things that I didn't become. And sometimes we can discover that like maybe you were grieving things that were never really your dreams in the first place or weren't really, it was this imagined idea of like perfection or like an amalgamation of what happens in the movies that seems to make people happy, but like it really never was for you. That's kind of with those stability types. That's more what we have to learn. And I self-identify as one of those types, is like, wait, I'm allowed to change these things. I can cut my hair. I can dress differently. I can pursue a creative avenue, even though that was never rewarded or encouraged when I was younger, So all of this to say that no one ever escapes. This is part of the reason I chose this question, is it's so universal. No one ever escapes missing versions of themselves that they used to be or that never came to be, and wondering what could have been. None of us are free from that. And as an additional note, mourning the self, mourning versions of the self is such a natural part of healing. It's like, actually, it's a phenomenon that we can witness in like the therapy space, is sometimes when we finally get what we want, we can feel pain for all of the time that we didn't have it, or we didn't think it was possible, or how much hardship it feels like we could have saved ourselves if we had realized something or made a change so much earlier in life. And unfortunately, I really believe that we come here to this earth to learn and to grow. And that's sometimes a long and arduous process. And I really want to hear from you guys if there's something that you're exploring for the first time and what you're learning from that, or if there's a particular illusion that you had for your life that you've let go and it feels really freeing now. Don't we all grow up in the culture of you'll be married by 26 and have kids by 30, and like how many people's lives really do take that path, and what amazing things have happened because your life has taken a different path or has fallen on a different timeline than you expected. So yeah, just share with me, share in the comments below this podcast, or go follow me on TikTok and Instagram, and we can chat over there. And until next episode, which is the last episode of this season, it's season 4, and I'm super excited for that. I hope you are well, and I'll catch you next Wednesday.